the digital world and technology is super important, and here at YLC, we're always trying to break glass ceilings and class ceilings for females who want to get into this space. We're super passionate about it, and we're always trying to align ourselves with individuals and also organizations that support that cause. So we just want to ask you a few questions just about your role, what you do with the digital/IT space, and sort of what your day-to-day activities are. So we'll start off with Laolu. Can you tell us what made you interested in the digital audit field?
So hi everyone, I'm Laolu. So with me, at university, so I went to the University of Bristol and I studied economics and management. And after finishing that, I went on to do a master's in the management of information systems and innovation at LSE. And when I was looking at job roles for obviously career prospects, looking around, I was really interested in the link between finance and technology and what that space is like. So then I came across the digital audit role at PwC. And so it was really from an interest in trying to see where that future is and where that future is taking us, and trying to basically just gain competency there, because I'm still on the graduate scheme. So I'm still really trying to learn as much as I can because I'm in the early days of my career.
Brilliant. And so can you tell us what a typical day in your life looks like, what you get up to?
Very different to a year ago, but I'll just kind of give a summary where it looks like at home and at work. So I start my day, obviously, firstly, coffee, always. And there's usually team catch-ups, like internal PwC team catch-ups for like 15 to 30 minutes. So we just find out where everybody's at with their different tasks, understand if there are any issues. And then from then on, myself and my teams, we try to schedule all our client calls in the morning, which like client calls are trying to understand maybe client processes, trying to understand what's going on in their companies, in their IT systems, for example. And so that frees up space in the afternoon for actually getting on with my actual tasks, like documenting what we've talked about with the client, things like that. And I try to break up my day as to where during lunch I'll go for a walk, or I don't know, do a bit of exercise, nothing crazy. And in the evenings as well, I'll try to get outside again. So yes, having that, trying to get that separation, so I'm not just sat at my desk all day, because then you can, that gets a bit tedious.
Wow. And so just in your role in itself, can you sort of highlight anything that, like sort of any big achievement, you know, that you fulfilled, or just anything that you thought was like a wow sort of moment in your career?
I think with my role in particular, because it's very client focused, like client facing, I've had to really build my confidence in terms of leading client calls and leading meetings. So we're trying to, most times it's trying to understand the client's information systems and their finance systems and things that have to do with their finance system. So it's really building my competency and my knowledge in that area, so that when I am leading those calls, I know what the right questions are to ask and I can understand what they're saying. And then in team catch-ups, I can further like document and explain what that's going on. So it's really building my confidence, because most times you're talking to high-level seniors with these companies, so you need to understand what you're talking about. So yeah, so I think that's one of the most important things for me.
And just on the confidence, do you have any tips for sort of any females that are in sort of roles that requires them to, you know, be client-facing and build their confidence? Is there any sort of books you read or any sort of rituals you do daily?
I think with me, a lot of the things I used to do, especially at uni, was watching a lot of TED Talks on like female leadership and like confidence building. And that helps, because then you just get to see so many different women in different fields. First of all, leading the TED Talks and talking about their experience. So it just makes me a bit more, I guess, confident, like, okay, I'm a girl, I'm a woman, but I can be in any space. I can take up any space I'm in. I don't need to feel shy. And there will be situations where you feel like, oh, I probably shouldn't say anything, but it's pushing that, bring yourself out of that box and be like, okay, my voice is good enough to be heard. I'm good enough to stand in front of people, and people want to know what I have to say. And when I guess it's also being confident in your work as well. If you've put in the effort and like, okay, I know I've done a good job. When you're in front of people, you're confident to speak on that. And that's one thing that I really like, because even in situations where I haven't really prepared, I know I'm not as confident as I should be. So in situations where I have, then that confidence shines through.
Brilliant. And are there any sort of challenges that you've had to overcome, and how have you overcome them?
I think maybe a challenge would be, again, maybe a thing of maybe going back to the confidence thing and talking to clients who maybe see you as a junior staff, especially when I first joined. It's like they almost sometimes maybe want to talk to your seniors more than you. So it's really like getting feedback from your managers and saying, okay, how should I handle situations like this? And also a thing of like maybe even like knowledge, like understanding the work you're doing, because there's so much to learn quickly, and it's very on the job learning. So it's not being afraid to ask questions and like ask for support when you need the support, because people are always ready to help. So yeah.
And just very lastly, why should females be interested in a digital or tech role?
I mean, there's always diversity is important, mainly because of the different perspectives people can bring, because everyone, male or female, has gone through different experiences, and there's always something unique you can bring into the space through whatever you've experienced in your day-to-day. So I think the different perspectives, you have something unique you can bring to the table, and there's always space for you to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laolu.
Thank you.
Abigail, could you just sort of introduce your role and what is it that you do?
So I am a first-year digital auditor. So I started only 8 months ago. Oh. So I'm an associate working in digital audit. So similar to the role of Laolu, that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis as well.
The digital audit role, brilliant. And could you let us know any sort of skills or qualifications? Because obviously I think you said you started 8 months ago.
Yeah.
It was required for someone to carry out your role.
So in general, the kind of qualification that PwC asks for is a 2-1 in any degree whatsoever, so whatever subject you choose. But there's also a thing called Flying Starts in PwC, where effectively you can apply straight from school and go into that and kind of build up the experience of the job, and also kind of alongside that do either a technology or an accounting degree whilst you're there. If someone had told me that 4 years ago, I would have probably done that, because it would have saved me a lot of poor student years, but I did not know. But in hindsight, look into it if you're interested. So I did chemical engineering at university. So it kind of gave me the skills that I feel like I needed to kind of do this job. In terms of the main skills, I'd say kind of teamwork, because everything you do is kind of in a project team. So you have to be able to adapt to kind of everyone of different levels of seniority's opinion, work to a different time scale that suits everybody in that team. Yeah. Also, you need to be able to communicate, like working with clients and so on. Sometimes the communication barrier can really be there. So it's trying to be able to understand both sides of the story, yeah, and also being motivated, because it can be tough. So you need to kind of have that motivation to see it through and know that it's going to be worth it at the end of the day.
Brilliant. So what current projects are you working on in your digital audit role?
So right now I'm working with a client which is a recruitment services for STEM businesses, so a bit of a weird one. But so kind of my current job is to gain an understanding of their technology and their business controls to try and protect their financial statement effectively. So to reduce the risk of fraud or misrepresenting their financial position, because they can get in a lot of trouble for doing that, or also just making sure that people within the company don't have too much power to do things that they shouldn't be doing and also can cover it up at the same time. So we work with clients to try and see what kind of technology they've got in place to try and minimize those risks. And then we basically ask for evidence for them to prove it. And we test that evidence and then send back a big audit report saying what they've done well and what they've done not so well. So that's kind of the project that I'm working on just now.
Brilliant. And sort of what advice would you give to individuals who are interested in working in your role, and sort of what are the expectations from them as well?
I think PwC are a pretty flexible organisation in terms of the specific qualifications and so on that you need. I'd say the biggest recommendation would be to kind of build up your own personal skill set. So working on these communication skills, your problem solving skills and so on and so forth. Whether that is going and getting a degree and showing it that way, or trying to get a kind of internship either with PwC or something like that, or even just gaining some experience in any kind of work role that you're working and kind of solving problems on your feet and things. That's really all things that are pushing towards it. And again, like we were talking about earlier, I do think it is the confidence thing, because a lot of people apply for PwC, and I think sometimes you feel like you're lost in the crowd, and it's kind of having the confidence to say, actually, no, I think I might be quite good at this job, and building that up. So I'd say that would be the best steps forward.
I just wanted to touch on the internships, because sometimes people are not always ready to just go straight into the role, but they want to try something small first. Yeah. Is there sort of a process that they have to go through to get an internship, and is there a sort of fixed time frame of how long the internships are?
So I'm actually not too sure. When I first started in September, I know that I was working on a client where there was an intern, and she was there for, I think it was maybe 3 months as part of her degree. But I don't know if it has to be incorporated in terms of specific degrees, or whether you can just apply for it separately. I would have to refer you to the website. I didn't do an internship, I'll be honest.
I'm sorry, I'm happy to jump in there, because I actually joined from doing a summer internship myself. So in my second year of university, I applied for a summer internship with PwC because I studied accounting and economics, and it's all great having like the book knowledge, but I didn't know what I wanted to do once I graduated. And I think this was great just to get my foot in the door, be in an organization and see what was out there. So although it was a 6 to 8 week summer internship, it allowed me to get into a business and just talk to as many people as possible to understand what kind of roles are out there, what the culture is like, what it would be like once I graduate. So I did that in corporate tax, and actually through all of these conversations and just my initiative, I ended up getting a graduate role, but I decided to change into a different area of the business that interested me more. So I definitely recommend it. I think it helps you find what it is you like and don't like, and what you think you can see yourself doing in the future. So yeah, definitely a great way to get in.
Brilliant. And we're going to come to you soon. So yeah, just moving back to Abigail, what would you say the work culture is like in PwC? How would you describe it?
It's hard work but flexible. I think that's probably the most fair way to describe it. So recently we've just brought in the no working hours thing, which personally is my favorite thing in the world. So you can start and finish whenever you like. So I'm quite good in the mornings, for example, but post lunchtime, talk to me and I can barely respond. So I try and get as much done at the beginning of the day, and then start a wee bit earlier and have the rest of my day. Or you can have like a 3-hour lunch break if that's what you need to go and do certain things. And I think that flexibility and the trust that PwC has in you to kind of give you that freedom, but also kind of trust you to get the work done, makes it a really good work culture to be in. And kind of touching on what Paige just said there, I think another good thing about the work culture in PwC is if you go into a role and it's not necessarily what you think it's going to be, they're quite keen to keep you. So if you say to someone and be like, this maybe isn't what I want to do, but I don't want to entirely leave the company, can I go try this? They're pretty open to doing that. So like I said, I studied engineering, so most of my interest is kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty technical stuff. And so right now I'm kind of starting to go on to the more programming side of digital audit, and DA3 it's called, literally just because I asked and said that I was interested in it. So I think that flexibility that's there makes it a really good place to work.
Brilliant. And just lastly, what could you tell me about PwC that's not widely known to everyone?
I saw this question beforehand and I didn't know whether to be super serious about it or just say something a bit strange, and I decided to go for the strange thing. So on one weekend work call that we had, just a social thing, we were just sitting talking through, and one of the more senior guys on the team was talking about what it was like when he joined PwC, and he said that it was a much more different kind of intense environment back then, but they used to do this weird advertisement for PwC, and all of the rest of the big 4 accounting companies would make a theme tune. So we've tried to Google it, and you can see on YouTube that PwC years ago actually released their own theme song purely for us, and if you Google it, it is the weirdest and funniest thing of all time. They've like dug it really deep in YouTube so you can't find it anymore, but if you try hard enough you'll find it. It's good.
Thank you so much. Something like on Friday. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Abigail. That was fantastic. I'm sure people have sort of learned a lot, and those who will replay it will be able to get all the nuggets that they've been waiting for. So we're just going to move on to Katie. Hello, Katie.
Hello, sorry, just unmuting myself.
Yeah, if you could just describe your role and sort of what it is that you do in PwC.
Yeah, that's fine. So I've been at PwC for nearly 4 years now. I work in tax. I work in a branch of international advisory tax called transfer pricing, which is not something I ever thought I'd be able to say, to be honest. It's not something I ever grew up just like desperately wanting to do. But my mum was super supportive when I was looking for jobs, and she was just like, right, we're going to look at everything. You can go and speak to every company that you want to go and speak to. I'll drive you up and down the country if you want to. I grew up in Cornwall, so going up to see all of these businesses was a bit of a stretch. But she just, honestly, I spoke to so many people, and when I looked at this job, it just kind of encompassed everything that I liked doing. So the job I do isn't strictly tax. It's a job called transfer pricing, and we work with large multinationals because there's a problem, which I think when you say it out loud, it makes sense, but it's hard to know where to tax profits internationally. So say if you've got like ASOS could design their clothes in one location, they could buy or make their fabric in another location, then that fabric could get made into the designs in another location that then gets sold in the UK. So all of that profit's going to sit in the UK company. So we don't work with ASOS, but we could work with ASOS to go back through the supply chain and allocate amounts of money back to where they should sit, which on the surface of it, I understand it can sound quite boring when you're probably 16 and looking at a finance job. But for me, I love it because you really get to like dig right into the core of what a business does, and you get to speak to all of the people super high up in their roles who are like, it's just great conversations and super nosy, which is part of me. So
brilliant. So you kind of described just sort of a little bit of sort of what you do, but like what made you interested in your role? Is there anything you can expand upon in terms of your day-to-day activities?
Yeah, I think what made me interested in my role was literally just going through, searching through different kinds of jobs. So I also did chemical engineering at university, and I realised quite shortly into chemical engineering that it was not for me. And then I had that moment where I was like, God, what am I going to do now? And then I found TP, and I was like, it just kind of sums up everything that I like. Like I like a challenge. I do like quite technical work, and I like a routine. Like I like being able to sit at a desk, and I know that's not for everybody. I am also incredibly nosy. So one of the key parts of our job is interviewing people. We spend a lot of time interviewing exec suites, people like right up at the top end of their business, to really understand what the business does, where the value is created in the business, what differentiates that business from the other businesses in the market, and then be able to tie the profit back to that. So part of the job is a lot of like qualitative searching and understanding of businesses, and then there's the mathematical part that comes with it of like looking how much they earn and looking to attach that back to the less mathematical part. So it's a bit of both, I think.
Brilliant. So what motivates you at work?
Yeah, so I think I just really like a challenge. I love problem solving. So if I look at something, I want to understand it. I don't like just looking at something and taking it at face value. I really like digging underneath it and making sure I completely get it. And I think it's just the people as well. Like I absolutely love my team to bits, and when they're all working so hard to do something, it makes me want to work hard as well, because they're all just great people.
I think you'd make a good investigator or a private PI.
Yeah, honestly, that would be my dream job. If I could be a PI, I'd be in it.
So just on mentorship, which is something that our organisation is super passionate about, did you have any mentors, or do you have a mentor sort of that helped you with your career path, and sort of just be your own sort of nudge and guidance?
Yeah, so I think I've got a few people that I would call more informal mentors, and they're so helpful. They've got years and years of experience in the business. They might have come in from different aspects, and they can almost tell things about you that you can't realise in yourself yet, because they can just spot it. They've seen so many people come up through the ranks, and being able to sit down and have those honest conversations. It's not always the nicest thing to hear someone be like, oh, actually you do a bit too much of this, you should really tone it down. But I think those constructive conversations are the one thing that really sets you apart. Like they're what lets you grow and learn, and like having those honest conversations with yourself is difficult to do without somebody else critically looking at what you're doing. So I think mentoring helps from that perspective. But aside from the informal roles, there are so many routes in PwC to get mentors. You can get diversity and inclusion mentors, you can get more senior mentors, you can kind of aim it like a senior manager who's like 2 roles above us, or you can aim it more at partners. There's loads of different ways of getting a mentor at PwC.
Brilliant. So how does your role impact the organisation, PwC?
So I actually had quite a big conversation with my friends about this question before I came onto this, because I read it and I think, and it's a confidence thing. I read that and I was like, oh God, do I make a difference at PwC? And I said that to one of my colleagues and they were like, no, of course you do. And I think you have to remember that every single person at PwC started somewhere. Every single person who's a partner who's now leading the organisation started as an associate. And PwC wouldn't function without its people, and it needs people at every single grade to be able to do the work and constantly learn and get to the next stage and get to the next stage and keep going. So I think it is very easy to take at face value the fact that you might not be that senior in an organisation, but everybody started somewhere. And I think the future of PwC relies on the people like us starting our jobs now, which sounds a bit like motivational, but I think it's true.
That's okay. We need that. So, yeah, what would you consider your top accomplishments? What would you consider top accomplishments for someone in this role over the next year?
I think it really depends. So you could look at it from like a promotional point of view and say going for manager, getting more like client exposure, being like left up to your responsibility. But then again, looking at the more fun side of things, one of the girls on our team was working really close with the partner who's helping the OECD. I don't know if we've heard of the OECD. Are an organisation that help with setting international business guidelines. So it's not just transfer pricing, it's just like wider than that. And she was really helping the partner who was helping the OECD. And he said, do you know what, thank you so much for how much you've done over the last couple of months. I'm going to take you to Paris with me and you can sit in the meeting with all of the executives, with all the top companies, all the CEOs and all of the OECD. So she got to go with him, had a free trip to Paris.
Wow.
Pretty good accomplishment, I think.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. That's brilliant. And I know it's not part of the question, but I feel like I want to ask this because I asked you about having mentors, and obviously it's sort of mental health sort of awareness. I wanted to find out sort of how PwC helps support their employees' sort of mental health and their well-being.
Yeah, so I think there are 101 different routes for you to help with your mental health in PwC. We have your career coaches, which are the people who are a grade or 2 above you, who you can go to. And if, like, I'm fortunate enough that I get on with my career coach exceptionally well enough, if I've got any problems, I just go straight to her. We've also got mental health first aiders in every office that can help you. Our sick leave is inclusive of mental health. So if you've had a panic attack, if you're having a really like down period, it's completely okay to take time off work, and that is encouraged. We have the green light to talk, which some partners are part of that scheme. So you can see posters around the office of the partners in the green light to talk. And it means that if you're having a problem, then you can just go straight to one of those green light to talk people and discuss that with them. Our team also does things called curious coffees once a week. So we can talk to anybody, and like part of that is checking in on people and making sure everyone's okay. I would say out there, probably one of the best organisations for checking in on mental health and making that like a top topic of conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie. That was very
interesting.
We're going to move on to Paige. Last but certainly not the least. Could you just sort of tell the audience, you know, what your job role is and sort of what you get up to?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Paige. I've been with PwC almost coming up to 4 years now, which has flown by. It's crazy. So for 3.5 years, I was actually doing a different role. So I was in a team called Global Mobility Tax. And so we essentially look at large organizations, that send their employees to work overseas, whether that be permanently, whether that be for business trips, and looking at their tax and social security implications and the policies around that. And then just recently, I have switched into a new role. So again, just highlights how much you can move around within the organization. Because I think since I've been in PwC, this is now my 3rd different role. So it's great to have that breadth of opportunity. But the team that I'm currently in is called the Workforce Strategy and Culture team. And essentially, we help organizations look at all elements. So a bit self-explanatory, but things around their culture. So that could be diversity and inclusion, what kind of policies they have in place for that. We also look at kind of the size and shape of organizations. So whether they need to restructure, whether they need to implement more technologies to increase efficiencies. How are employees feeling about working and doing surveys and reporting back on that? So really interesting. I've only been in the role just over a month, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what's to come.
Brilliant. So what does success look like in your position, and how do you measure it?
So I think this is, this question can be taken either way. So I guess everyone measures success differently. So if I tell you in my position, it would look like probably moving up the ranks, eventually becoming a partner, getting enough experience on all of the interesting roles. But for me personally, I'd say success looks like waking up every day and being excited and motivated to do what I do every day. So I think yes, being promoted and getting all those great opportunities is great, and some people might strive for that. But like I said, on my hand, if I get to a point where I'm like, okay, great, I'm a director, but I don't enjoy what I'm doing, or it's not making me happy, I think that will definitely be a trigger point to be like, oh, do I feel successful inside? So I think it's definitely it depends how you look at success. For me personally, that's how I look at it. But yeah.
Brilliant. Wonderful. And so in terms of professional development, obviously you've been there for 4 years. Are there any opportunities for professional development in your role?
Yeah, so there's like definitely always opportunities for professional development, and I think also it takes a bit of your own initiative, because yes, there's formal things put in place. So we constantly have training for our roles, whether that be soft skills or whether that be technical skills. There's always training for that. But then, like I said, it also comes to you taking some initiative and being proactive and taking charge of your own development. So that might be, seeking and actively going out of your way to find these opportunities, speaking to the right people. There's loads of resources and extracurricular things within PwC. So it really takes you to go out and find those things, because you're in charge of your own personal development and professional development at the end of the day. So, good things come to those who wait, but I'd say better things come to those that go out and get them. So yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So how do you see your role changing or expanding in the future?
So I'd say there's probably plenty of opportunities for the roles to change in a formal sense. Like I said, I've just kind of come into the team, so I'm sure the more experience and the more growth, and kind of when I figure out where I fit within the team, I think that in itself, I'll be doing different roles and different projects, etc. And just because I'm in this role now doesn't mean that's going to be my lifelong career. Like I said, you do have the opportunity to move around, which is great, because I think especially when you're young, I never knew what I wanted to do when I was older. And if it makes you feel better, I'm in my mid-20s and I still don't know what I want to do. So I think there's so much pressure on people to know what it is that they want to do when they're older. But it takes a lot of figuring out. And I think, just being able to try out different things, see what works for you, I think it's great. But yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to kind of take and gain these experiences and maybe be in a different part of the world, because PwC is all around the world and we have offices everywhere. And I think it's a great opportunity to even possibly be able to do that if my role kind of calls for it.
Brilliant. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. So like I said, I really enjoy traveling, so I think it would be great to be able to move to different countries and whether it be with PwC, whether it be doing something else, but I think career-wise, like I said, I just want to be in something that I thoroughly enjoy and makes me happy. So, you know, whether it be this, whether it be another role. But yeah, ideally I would like to explore the current role that I'm in and try and get a breadth of opportunity and experience, and kind of, you know, it is very people focused, and that is what I really enjoy. So I think it's great just to kind of get that experience, and 5 years is a long time. I mean, a year ago, I'm sure we wouldn't have thought that we'd be sitting here in this position. So I don't want to plan too far ahead, but yeah, I do have aspirations, definitely.
I just thought I'll open up the floor to any questions. If anyone has any of the attendees have any questions, please feel free to ask. I just wanted to just lastly ask you, do you have any sort of positive role models that you look up to, anyone who inspires you?
So for me personally, it's my mom. So I grew up in a single parent household with myself and my brother. So, you know, I think having seen how she was able to bring us up by herself in a completely different country. So I actually grew up in Canada, and my mom was, you know, hundreds and hundreds of miles away from her family. And I think just seeing the strength of a woman, you know, being able to work, look after her kids, not having that emotional and physical support around, and just seeing how well she did to bring up two hopefully amazing, she would like to say, children is just great to see. And so I think she's who motivates me to strive in life, and she is definitely my biggest role model, I'd say.
Wow, a teary moment now. Oh, thank you so much. That was absolutely
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask now, or you can email us info@youngladiesclub.com, and we'll pass any questions that you have for the panelists. So if any of the attendees want to write a question, please feel free to write in the chat box, or we can take questions later. So we'll give you maybe a few minutes to work that out. But other than that, thank you very much for taking time out on Friday afternoon to talk to us. We really appreciate it, and we do really hope that you know, those who play the recording and those who are part of the session today are really sort of inspired and they take something away. We have a question from Samantha. She says, what is the best way to prepare for the assessments for graduate roles? And any of you can answer that.
I think it's just practice. Like, I'm not going to claim that I know what the process is now, because I think it's changed a lot in the 5 years since I've applied. But that is a long time ago. But they do like psychometric tests online. You can find them on Google. So just practice as many as you can before you do the ones that PwC send you.
Brilliant. So hopefully that's answered your question, Samantha. If anybody else has a question, please ask. Just
on that note, on assessment centers, I think because obviously they do the tests as well as the like what are they called, the the actual in-person like
the assessment days,
interviews, and the assessment days. Sorry, it's been a while. I think again, it's the confidence thing. So if it's even practicing with your friends on answering questions like, why are you interested in this role, or why, like, what experience at university do you think is good for this role, things like that. So just talking to your friends and practicing with each other, or even in the mirror with yourself, and just seeing, going on YouTube as well and seeing how people have answered those kinds of questions. That's kind of what I did, just knowing, because I didn't really know how to structure my answers, and like there's lots of help on YouTube on how you can answer those questions in different ways.
Yeah, I think somebody else is asking about how they can get mentoring or some workshop support from PwC, so that they run a student-run charity teaching code for free, and they have 62% female participation. So I think they're interested in sort of mentoring or support. But I think is that if that's Taylor, we can sort of send you some information if you like about any sort of support that you need, or if anyone else wants to answer as well.
Yeah, I think within PwC, I'm sure I've seen things and been involved with these before in terms of kind of mentoring and workshops. I think it's more either our student recruitment team or our social mobility team that would kind of deal with arranging that. So yeah, I would say we can look into that and get back to you with some further information. But that's a great cause, and especially if it's student run, that's great that young people are kind of getting involved and doing that in their free time. So
brilliant. And so if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to ask.
One thing I was going to say that came up earlier about internships was we also do a Women in Business Week.
Yes.
I don't know what it looks like in the pandemic, but I assume it will come back after. And it's just basically you spend a week shadowing one of the partners, directors, who's female in the PwC business. So definitely worthwhile doing, and also a nice route into the internship, I think, if you want to do it too.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Okay, that's fantastic. I don't know if anyone on the panel has sort of any last parting words before we close. But yeah, this was a fantastic session, and I'm sure we're going to have loads more questions once we put it up on our socials. So so we'll just send that through to the necessary contact. But thank you so much for joining, and we definitely hope to see you or work with you again in the future and get more information about your role. So thank you so much for